So, welcome to this first live webinar, seminar, whatever you want to call that. I'm really glad that you're here today, and I have a lot of information that I would like to cover with you. First thing I'll tell you is just a little bit about myself. Well, I better back up. This is the live online
Hey, what's
course.
good, humans and aliens? Is
Whoop, I'm hearing something. Um, now I'm not hearing something. This is the live online course, and this is Monday, September 4th, and I plan on going from noon Eastern time until 3 p.m. And just to give you a little information, you've probably heard my voice if you've watched the daily videos, which you wouldn't be here now if you weren't doing that. So, yeah, I'm not an avatar. I'm actually a real person. And what I'm going to talk about in this, I thought I'd put this one here first. The first hour, and we're probably going to go a little bit over that too, because I'm going to do a bit of an introduction about myself, and then just an overview of what I'm kind of all about, to just give you more information. Then the first section I'll be going into is my approach to technical analysis, which may be quite a bit different than what you're used to. It's different than what I was taught when I started learning this, and I just kind of developed my own way of doing things that has been quite effective. And then in the second hour, I'm just going to go through some basic strategies. I'm not going to hit them at a real deep level. I'm just going to talk about different things that maybe you're already implementing some of these. Maybe some of these will be new to you. And then in the third hour, I'll talk about support and resistance. And I'll go through kind of an overview, and then I'll demonstrate it using some charts where we can see that pretty clear. And then I'm going to go back, if we have time, and actually show you some current charts that I've been covering in the daily and weekly videos to kind of bring out this idea of support and resistance. So about me, just to give you a little bit of background, you just know me as this voice on these videos that I do. My name is John R. Clay. I use my middle initial. My father, who has passed away now, he was John H. Clay. So I'm not a junior. I have a different middle name. And I've just had to use that over the years to kind of differentiate between the two of us. I've been an educator for almost 40 years. I went to college to do that. I have a certified degree that allows me to teach K through 12. I've also done in a lot of different environments. I'm also a Microsoft certified trainer, and I would lecture for them. My gosh, talk about boring. Ah. And because I would lecture 4, 5, 6 hours at a time during those classes. I loved it, but it was high-end tech stuff. And then right now, to kind of keep my hand in the teaching game, because that's really what I am as an educator. I teach online English, or I teach English online. Yeah, I teach English to Chinese children. And I'm doing that online using software very similar to this. And I usually I say I'm not really teaching because they're children. I'm actually performing most of the time, because we're working on the ABCs and counting to 10 and doing the colors. So I've had a whole range of different experience. I've also been a coach. Baseball is my sport of choice. I've coached in basketball. I've coached soccer, or if you're from out of the U.S., football. And I'm also a musician. And so I've been in lots of learning environments like that as well. Some more formal, some less formal. And I've been a market participant for over 30 years now. I started in the early to mid 90s, didn't know anything about it, and just started learning. And I went, oh, okay, this is pretty cool. Oh, thank you, George. I had to hit that box again. And the more I learned, the more I thought, wow, I really like this. And then I kept going to these seminars. Well, yeah, there were seminars at the time. Now we would call them webinars, kind of like this. And it got to the point where it's like, okay, I know more now than the person up there that's trying to be teaching me something. And so I kind of incorporated that and started teaching more on an informal basis. And that's really what I like to do. That's my calling in life, is to be an educator or a teacher. And that's what I'm trying to do here. Okay, let's see. Yes, I'm from the Seattle area, if you're familiar with that. That's on the west coast of the US. And I was born and pretty much raised in the Seattle area. I did live for a short period of time in Florida, well, actually a couple years in Florida, which is where I'd kind of like to move to. And then I lived for kind of a short period of time also in Southern California. But for the most part, I'm a Washingtonian. And then about 5.5 years ago, believe it or not, I actually came to a country called Belarus, if you've heard of that. Up until, I don't know, a year and a half ago, a lot of people had never heard of Belarus. Now, if you've heard about it, it's probably because of the war that's going on. And yeah, in fact, I have a little map here on the next page. If you're familiar with Eastern Europe, where I have the circle, that's Belarus. It used to be part of the Soviet Union. And then after that fell, it became its own independent country. But because Russia is right here and Ukraine is right here, we're pretty much smack in the middle, right between it. And then we have Poland over here, which is a NATO country. And so if things get really hot, I'm kind of right in the middle of all that. So right now it's safe. Right now I say it's like being in the eye of a hurricane. And I can walk around. Anytime I hear a loud noise, I do look out the window. But just know that if you suddenly don't see me and you didn't hear any news about a nuclear attack or anything, I'm probably on the run at that point. Being a US citizen, I can get to a NATO country. I've actually been told I need to leave Belarus, but I came here to start a family and to build this program that I'm building and to do some traveling. And I thought, okay, I'll come to a nice, quiet country that most people have never heard of, only to have the hostilities break out that are currently unfolding. Yes, I am there now. I am in Belarus at this time. I'm in Minsk. If you want to, you don't have to, but both of you, you can tell me where you're from if you would like to do that, just so I get an idea. I don't know if you're from the US or, and then if you use a different name than what I'm used to seeing on YouTube. Oh, Salt Lake City. Okay. All right, George. Very good. Ah, okay. All right. Yeah. That's the weird thing about having screen names and Gmail names and YouTube names and all that stuff. But I everything's okay and it's been okay, but we're kind of right in the middle. And so I keep a close eye on things. I have an escape plan. Oh, you're from Boston. All right, Dylan. Great. So you're both from the US then. So it is early afternoon. Well, it's probably late morning for you, George. It's evening here. It's actually a little after 7 p.m. for me. So just be aware of that. As I get this thing going, I don't anticipate anything, but at the same time, I didn't anticipate what's already happening. So, all right. Okay, let's go on here. So the program, this is called the SPX Investing Program. I know it's not very inventive. I don't know if I'm ever going to get in trouble for that because SPX is one of the symbols for the S&P 500. And I'll start by just mentioning the program that I have available. You know how you come to things like this and they get you all excited and they work on your emotions? I'm going to do it the other way around because I'm kind of a rebel. It is based on a monthly membership. And the reason for talking about this in the first place, I'm trying to appeal to anyone who watches this. I want to appeal to your intellect and logic rather than to your emotions. I don't want to get you all hyped up and then try to sell you something. I'm trying to put together a program to build something that people can be a part of. And I'm completely upfront about what I do. I've always been that way. Even if nobody comes into this program, I'll still do what I do every day. But I would sure like to share what I have learned with you. Being an educator, that's my passion, is learning and then being able to teach it to others. And try to look at me as a guide. Don't look at me as some kind of a mentor where I'm going to say, you do it this way, this way, this way, or some kind of a guru where I say, okay, buy this, sell that, do this, do that. I'm trying to establish a set of skills that you have with you. And so these take longer to develop, but they can lead to some pretty good results if you approach it this way. And what I would recommend, and I have another chart later on, is if you've been watching the videos for a while, or if you're kind of new to them, go back and look at a chart of the S&P. I have one later on, and then go and kind of browse through the videos that I was posting and see what I was saying at that time. I put a real heavy emphasis on evaluating where we're at. And that's like step number one for me. And then I go from there. So the SPX Investing Program, it is $97 per month. Now, there's some ways you can get around that that I'll explain, but I just want to be upfront about this. It's a monthly membership type thing. And I drink lots of water when I'm talking. And this will give you first access to the daily, weekly, and supplemental videos. Any of the videos that I'm posting now, when I'm done doing them, I just upload them and off they go. Well, when this thing actually gets up and going, you'll get, as a member, you will have first access to these videos. And then there's a lot of online courses that I do. I kind of have my program in two basic ways. There's the theory and basic information on one side. That's where you learn the concepts, and I start at the very beginning and go all the way to advanced. And then you take that information that you learn in these courses, and then the daily videos, now we're seeing that played out on a day in and day out basis. So it's not just taking some theory and then just trying to use it somehow. It's actually taking it and using it. And then I do supplemental videos, workshops, and mini courses. These are designed based on how long they are. Supplemental videos are usually less than an hour. Workshops are between 1 and 2 hours. Mini courses might be longer than 2 hours. And that goes beyond what I cover in the daily, weekly, and supplemental videos. And it goes beyond what I cover in the online course. And they're kind of created on an as-needed basis. You'll also have access to a members-only blog. Members-only jackets that I used to wear back in the 80s. This is not public. This will be where I can share information with you. And then any extra videos that I do in addition to that, I do have what's called a sample portfolio, where the first step of what I do is I evaluate where we're at with the market, whether we're going up, down, or sideways. Then based on that, I have a whole list of strategies, and I decide, okay, what am I going to implement right now? And every day I sit down and plan this out. Well, as I'm planning this out, I update it where you can come in and try to get some ideas. I will probably prepare a video every day where I go through all of this and talk about some of the concepts and some of the things that you might want to look at. I'm not giving you actual advice. I'm trying to just show you some opportunities that you may want to see and take advantage of. We'll also have more of a community discussions area where you can interact more with me. You might be able to interact with each other if you decide to do that. And then I'll have debriefing sessions where maybe once a week, maybe on an as-needed basis, where I go live, something like right now, when we just talk about what's going on. Maybe you got into a position or out of a position. Maybe something went wrong. Maybe something went right. We can talk about, okay, what can we learn from this? And congratulate you when you're right and try to learn from it when things don't go as well. And then I also have one-on-one Zoom sessions, kind of like right now, where if you want to talk to me, and as the program grows, this will become less available, but I don't really limit that. If you want to have a one-on-one with me, you're more than welcome to do that. You don't have to do this. Some people are not really comfortable doing this kind of a thing. We could do voice only if that's what you want to do. Believe it or not, I have a couple of students that I work with now. I've never seen them. They just don't want to be on camera. And so we just do voice only lessons. And then if I do any classes that are live online where I take all these online courses and maybe break it down into a smaller course, you'll have access to that. And then if I travel around to different places and do an in-person teaching for maybe a week or 2 weeks or something, you can be part of that as well. And those will also be recorded and made available. Anytime I update any of this information, that's all included as part of this. And then I have a thing called the affiliate program. This is where you might be able to lessen this monthly fee. How I'm setting this up is, if you know a person who might be good for this program and the program might be good for them, for every month that they stay enrolled in the program and you brought them in, that's you'll get to have half of that. Okay. That'll go towards half of your fee every month that they continue to be involved. And if you get 2 people, you've covered your whole monthly fee right there. And you can even take it beyond that if you want to make some kind of monthly income from that. But to some people, $97 might not be very much. To others, it might be an awful lot. And I don't want to assume anything. I just kind of wanted to have a way for that to be handled if that's something that interests you. And you're automatically in that. You don't have to take advantage of it, but you can do that. I just need your email address so that you get credit for that. I also have for members a daily plan and investment journal where we go through things, and we can go through this through videos, and we talk about this. We talk about where we were at, where we've come to, things that we've done right, maybe open positions that we have right now, and then try to come up with a plan going forward. And after this, I just recorded it again today because I recorded it over the weekend and then I deleted it. I go into more detail about this whole program and more my philosophy. There'll be some overlap between what I'm saying here and what you'll see there, but I've tried to keep it more or less separate. Now, where did this whole idea for these videos come along? When I really got going in the market, and in the late 90s into the early 2000s, right after 9/11 or so, this was my job. This is what I was doing. But as I started to change my approach to technical analysis, I'm like, oh my gosh, there's so much information here. How can I keep all of this straight? And I started recording these videos over 20 years ago for myself. I was the only one watching these because this is a way for me to organize everything. When I have a lot of ideas, I might write them down. I might talk to people. I might even do a video. And I'm just able to organize that information as though 1,000 people might end up seeing this. And it's worked for me. And then from there, I was able to take a lot of information, and this allowed me to be more organized, and I could see this in a more coherent manner at that point. It just presented it more organized. And then I was able to use it all together. And then I was able to be more confident in the conclusions that I was reaching about where are we going with the market right now. And then this can be used to develop this into a plan. And then I do this one day at a time. Now, if we're really screaming up or screaming down in the market, and you might put a comment on the YouTube video or the Rumble video or something, and you're like, well, what do you think of this? Or what are you going to do? Or something like that. I've already made my decision based on the conclusions that I've come to in the video. And that plan lasts me from one day to the next day. Then I fall back and regroup again, and I say, okay, does this plan need to be adjusted? I don't change the plan midstream. So then when I was doing these videos, and you'll have to excuse me, this is different than how I usually do it. I don't know if either of you are aware, but I really injured my right arm about, my gosh, almost 2 weeks ago now. And that's why I haven't been able to edit the videos. And it's, other than sitting right here, right now, the way I am, it's very painful. And I'm not using the same computer that I usually use. And for me to lift my hand to control the mouse and sit in a chair is very painful. And it's just not getting any better for right now. But as I was doing these videos, I then set up a website, and I had some friends and some people that I came across who started watching the videos as well and found them to be quite useful. So I've been doing this for quite a while. All right, let's get in and talk about how I develop my approach. And I've developed what I call my own approach, and I watch other videos on YouTube and Rumble And I'm noticing the people that I really like and that I get good information from, they kind of use a similar approach. I didn't realize that at the time, but it's kind of developed into that. And through this program, you will develop your own approach. You'll take what I have to offer and kind of turn that in and then make it your own. So instead of focusing on just a few indicators, I try to find all the information out there that I can. And I call this the consensus approach or the consensus method. In fact, I think it's consensus method and consensusapproach.com. I actually have those domain names registered. I haven't done anything with them yet, but this is kind of what I call this, where we take everything we can. If you're familiar with history, the Cuban Missile Crisis, when we almost went to war, in 1962, JFK was president. And I don't know what you think of him. I don't know what you think of the assassination. But one of the things that I learned about him is during that whole ordeal, he was asking anybody and everybody, what do they think? What do you see happening? What do you think the right answer is? What do you think should be done about this? And he wasn't doing that because he was all confused and didn't know what to do. He was trying to absorb as much information as he could, and then he would finally come to a conclusion himself about what to do. And it turns out that he was right, and history was on his side, at least in that situation. History would not be on his side a few years later. But that's kind of the approach that I take. And so this becomes the basis of my plan for the next day, and I don't deviate from that plan. So that's why I've decided where I'm at right now at the end of each daily video. So developing a plan, market evaluation, and then plan development are done. And I do this when the market is closed. I don't make decisions when the market is open. I come up with my plan when the market is closed, and that lasts through the next trading day. And then at the end of the day, I fall back and say, okay, do I need to change this? The goal is to remove as much emotion as possible and then replacing it with logic and intellect, and then making plans and decisions when you're under pressure. Oh my gosh. See, there's a fine line between gambling and making good decisions. And when you start getting your emotions into it, you're kind of leaning more towards the gambling side at that point. The idea is fall back, regroup. The market's not open. You're not losing money. You're not making money. You can look at things a little bit more objectively at that point to come up with your plan. And then you don't deviate from that. And this may not be a problem for you, but it was for me. I actually had to end up writing a sign down that said, if you don't follow the plan, you will fail. Because I would see what was happening in the market and it would go against my plan. And I would be really tempted to jump in and do what I'm already seeing, but it would go against the plan that I had already developed. So that may be an issue for you or not. I don't know. So there's a fine line between gambling and then basing things on a plan. The goal is to try to eliminate as much emotion as possible. And there are times when gambling pays off. People win the lottery, okay? But in the long run, it just doesn't lead to success as well. We want to be able to execute a well thought out and developed plan, not just make decisions by the seat of our pants and just, oh my gosh, today I was going to do this, but I ended up doing that. And you're just all over the place and it's kind of crazy. And it may seem exciting, but when you've got thousands or tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line, yeah, your emotions are going to kick in and really start to take over. In fact, that's one of the areas I do have a whole class on mental analysis, which is trying to get all of our emotions under control. So we can also adjust the plan as needed, but not during the day. After everything's closed, we can sit back and go, okay, this is what I had planned on doing. Do I think I want to adjust this a little bit for the next day? All right, the journey. I spent many years when I first got into this trying to uncover indicators that gave me some kind of an edge on the market. Like a lot of people, I started off, I used a software program called MetaStock, if you've ever heard of that. And I would still be using it today, but the charts that they make to use for these videos, they just look terrible. And they're just not very useful. So I switched over and now I use stockcharts.com. But I was like most people, I wanted to find some indicators that I thought would work and give me some kind of an edge in the market. I wanted to be unique and I wanted to be finding out stuff that nobody else was finding out. I had really limited success doing this, and then I changed my approach. Instead of trying to find something new, I decided to start looking at the tools that I know everybody else is using, and then that's telling me what's going on. And believe it or not, that was a real turning point for me, especially the smart money. Now, there's big money and there's smart money. The smart money is what we want to follow. Those are the institutions and the pension plans and the trading syndicates and the people that really have influence in the market. There's big money, which would be like a hedge fund. They may have millions, if not billions of dollars, and they may be getting in and going in and getting out, but that's not necessarily the smart money. We want to try to follow what is the smart money actually doing and then try to jump on and do the same thing that they're doing. Okay, so developing approach, this was a real turning point for me. I realized that I should be watching what is happening rather than to try to see something that nobody else is seeing, thinking that I had some inside clue as to what was going on. And then with the indicators that I use, most often I use the default settings. Why do I do that? Because most people do that. And so over the course of time, I found that, okay, I don't really tweak them. Some of them I do change. There's some indicators that I have different settings for, but usually I just go with the out-of-the-box settings on here. And then I found that TA, or technical analysis, it kind of becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy where you remember what's happening during the day, and as each day unfolds, we have millions of people and we're all looking at the same thing at the same time. It might vary a little bit here and there, but when we're all looking at this, we're all coming to the same conclusion, at least the smart money is. This can give us some real insight as to what's actually happening in the market. And then this, over the course of time, has allowed me to not only evaluate where we're at right now, but it allows me to anticipate what's going to happen before it even happens. Now, not like a crystal ball or anything like that, but it really, I'm not necessarily surprised when different things happen each day. And that's what this approach has allowed me to do. And this process never ends. I'm always watching videos, reading books, playing with charts, going in. There's a couple of charts that I just started using this week that I've never used before. And I come up with ideas and I test something out for a while. There's a lot of charts that I don't show. Right before we ran into 2022, I was coming to completely different conclusions as we were running up after the COVID crash. And I was using different charts and different things that were telling us things at that time. Then when we started to hit problems in 2022, I had to introduce some different charts. And then if we go back to a roaring bull market again, I'll switch back and use some of the other charts as well. So playing all scenarios simultaneously. One of the biggest problems that I had was I was always being caught off guard by something that I didn't anticipate. And I didn't see it coming. And that was my biggest hurdle right there, was just something that I didn't plan for, something that I didn't see, something that I didn't anticipate just suddenly happened. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Well, I've really tried to hammer that. And that's why in the videos, I'm trying to hit all sides at the same time. The bullish side, the bearish side, the sideways side. I'm really trying to hit all of those. So I realized that at any given time, there's only three things that can happen. We can go up, down, or sideways. That's the only thing. The only thing that changes is time during this whole process. And then I try to follow all three of these at the same time. When you're watching the videos and we're really going up, you might hear me try to start to focus on reasons why we might stop and start to go down. And when we're really going down, I might start to focus on things that mean we're going to stop going down and start going back up. And then there's also a big percentage of the time when we're chopping sideways. That's what I use the ADX indicator for. That was another turning point for me too, was I was always a trend trader. I was either going long or short, okay? But then we hit an extended period of time where we were chopping more or less sideways. And I'm like, how do I figure out how to do that? And about 20 years ago, I uncovered the ADX indicator, and that really has helped to determine whether we're in a trend or not in a trend, and that becomes part of our plan, so that if we're in a trend, okay, what are we going up or are we going down? If we're not in a trend, okay, there's different things that we can do. Then once the evidence leaned towards the up, down, or sideways chart, or sideways side, whether we're leaning bullish or bearish, then I would go with that while I was also following the other two possible outcomes at the same time. And this, for me, started to catch the wave of not being caught off guard. I wasn't getting surprised anymore. I could see things developing before they actually happened, and I could prepare for that. So opinions. Then you may have realized that when I'm doing these videos, I don't really offer any opinions. I pretty much let all of these charts, when I come to that last part of the video and I say conclusion, short, intermediate, and long term, that's not an opinion. That's based on what we're seeing in all of these different charts. I might interject some things here and there. About the only part of the daily video that's me, where I actually come up with it, it's near the beginning of the video when I try to evaluate the bias and the momentum. Bias is usually if we had an up day or a down day. The momentum is what are the last 2, 3, 4, 5 days kind of taken together. That's pretty much me coming up with that. Everything else, I let the charts speak for themselves. And so I don't have to offer a lot of personal opinions. I just have to do a good job of interpreting what we're seeing. And then we kind of let the market tell us what's going on at that point. This is one reason why I don't get a lot of comments on my videos. I go to other channels and man, they get hundreds of comments. But a lot of these channels, it's people offering opinions. And then somebody wants to either agree with that opinion or go against that opinion, where I'm not really doing that. And so I don't get an awful lot of people who really respond back. And that's fine. That's just the way it goes. And it's also why my channel is probably growing slower than other channels. Again, I'm trying to appeal to logic and intellect. I'm not trying to appeal to emotions. That's a deeper level. And so I'm going to get a deeper crowd who are going to end up following this. So it's common for people who have an opinion to express that opinion. And we used to kind of have that right in the US. It seems like the First Amendment's going away. Well, that's going to be allowed in this program, as long as we stick with talking about the market, because we're so divisive right now in the US. And in the video I just got done recording, you can cross the street, and that's become political now. And I want this to be a safe place where you don't have to worry about getting attacked for something. And so we just kind of don't go into those areas, because what's happening politically doesn't have that much of an impact on the market. It can, it's usually short term, but the Republicans and the Democrats, they've got friends on both sides. You know, they don't really care who's the president is. They actually like it when we're split in Congress. And so they may act one way, but they've got their hands in different places. And for the most part, Wall Street treats what happens in DC as theater. They just see it as utter foolishness. And so they don't really take it all that seriously for the most part. And so, yeah, it's good to know what's going on. Sometimes it will have an impact on things. But we want to really get back to the charts and see what is that telling us. So when you're looking at the market, it's best to take an apolitical approach. You might be a left-wing liberal. Well, leave that at the door. You might be a right-wing conservative. Leave that at the door. Let the market tell us what's actually going on. Just to give you an example, back one of my more successful early trades when I was getting going, I made a big profit off of this. And it was having to do with something. President Clinton was the president at that time. And I saw what he was doing, and I saw where it was going to have an impact on the market. I didn't even agree with what he was doing. I didn't care about that. I knew the market was going to react in a certain way to this. I jumped in, made a really nice profit, and was able to get out. But those opportunities don't come along all that much. It's more about the Fed now than it really is about what the different politicians are doing. So through decades of practice, this has also helped me to develop foresight, to see things before they actually happen. Try to remain neutral if you can. As much as possible, I always try to stay in tune to what's actually going on. And I'm watching things all the time. I'm not in the crypto market, but even over the weekends when the market's closed, I'm still watching what's going on in the crypto market. Right now, you might see me look up from time to time. I'm looking in another computer watching the futures trade. When I'm teaching during the day, I'm looking around at different things just to see what's happening, just to kind of get a feel for it. If I'm out and about, I've got a smartphone and I'm not doing anything other than just keeping a grasp on what's actually happening. And that has really helped me too, try to be connected to what's happening, even when the market is closed. And this does not include, though, watching the financial media. I used to wake up in the morning and the first thing I turned on was CNBC. And that channel would stay on all day. And then about 2 or 3 hours after the market closed, then I'd finally jump over and watch The Simpsons or something. But I started to realize I'm not getting anything from this. You know, they're not really telling me anything. And I don't really watch it. It doesn't matter if it's CNBC or Bloomberg or Fox Business or Yahoo or any of the channels out there. I get my insight from actually looking at the charts themselves. I read some information that I like to believe is objective and to kind of come to what's going on, but I really let the charts talk for themselves. And then another thing that it doesn't include is a self-proclaimed guru. Now, I am not a guru, and I'm not a self-proclaimed. I'm a self-proclaimed teacher, okay? And I like what I do, and I have a real passion for it. But following someone else, there's so many people out there that offer this available, and then people jump in and start to follow what they say to do, and then they wonder why things don't go their way. And then acting on baseless tips. You know, there might be this new stock is coming out, or this is going to happen to the market. We want to pay attention to all of these things, but then we want to take it and then come to our own conclusion based on what the charts are saying, and then acting on some kind of a hunch. And I've done this before. I know lots of other folks that have done this. You just kind of get a feeling, like, but you're gambling at that point. You could be right, you could be wrong. The sad part about that is you're going to be right just enough to justify that you're doing okay with this. And then about the time you have another hunch, that may work in other areas of life, but somebody else wants to come in. But it really doesn't work that well when we're in the financial markets. We have to take a different approach. Okay, I think I'm done with this slide. Okay, and then we also have this why me attitude. You may feel like you have the uncanny ability to do exactly the wrong thing at the wrong time. And we all feel this way. I'm a big baseball fan. I'm a Seattle Mariners fan. Okay, Red Sox. All right. Salt Lake City doesn't have a team yet. But I've gone through a lot of years with the Mariners just being terrible. And the fact that they're doing well right now is very pleasing to me. And but you get this idea that, okay, if I go to a game, my team always loses. Or I buy a stock and it always goes down. Okay, it just, we have that feeling. But believe it or not, it can easily seem that way. But we have to come to the realization that we're not the center of the universe. If I thought that every time I buy something, it goes the opposite way, I could make a ton of money doing that. I could sell that as a service and say, okay, I'm buying the stock. That's telling everybody else to sell it. And you could make a lot of money doing that, okay, if they did the opposite of what you plan to do. But we just have to realize that the market's not out to get us. It's not moral. It's not immoral. It's amoral. It's not good or evil in and of itself. It's just a thing, and it plays out every day that it's open, and it's not trying to screw us over. We have to kind of realize that. It's not out to get you. It's amoral. And to overcome this problem, we have to arm ourselves with as much information as we can. We have to realize that we're not always going to be right. That doesn't necessarily mean the end of the world, but we have to remove as much fear and greed from the equation as we can, and then stick to our well-developed plan, which also has an escape plan. Part of this plan that we come up with every day, whoops, I guess he took off. Okay. Part of this plan is, okay, what are we going to do if we're wrong? Because things happen. You know, right before the COVID plunge, we were going up strong. And if you were to ask me a couple of days before we just started to tank, what do you think is going to happen? We were in a really solid uptrend at that time, only to have this massive drop right after everything kind of hit. And but then after that, we resumed the longer term trend that we had already been in. But things happen. You know, the day that JFK was assassinated, the rumors started hitting the New York Stock Exchange, and they didn't have Twitter or the internet at that time, but things started coming in, and the market reacted to that. So these things can happen, whether they're actually happening or just rumors. So be aware of when you're listening to others who might provide you with some insight, and that includes me. I want you to test me, make me prove myself to you. Okay, we're coming back now. Am I doing something wrong here? Let me, is he actually in the room? Hello, are we connected now? Feel free to send me a message in chat. Ah, there you are. I can see you.
Hey, John.
Hello, hello, hello. Okay, I'm kind of midway through this right now, so I'll just kind of keep going with this.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry I came in late,
Oh, that's
so I
okay.
apologize.
That's all right. Okay. The one thing that I really would stress is don't rely on the perma crowd. The people that are perma, they're always bullish. The market's always going to go up. And another crowd to kind of stay away from is the perma bears. These are the ones that the world's just about coming to an end. The market's getting ready to crash. I follow a few of these people. I've been following them since the early 2000s, and they've been predicting the end all crash of all crashes for 20 years now. And if you keep saying the same thing over and over again, eventually you're going to be right. So it's like they were in heaven during the 2007-8 debacle. They loved the whole COVID crash. But I listen to some of those folks, but I don't necessarily take to heart what they have to say. I ignore the financial media. I just realize that there's not all that much useful stuff that they're presenting to us. And I don't rely on these way out conclusions. Somebody that posts a video saying, I found a secret. This is happening right now. And they're trying to unveil some kind of secret information that's going to hit the market. And a lot of times that ends up just being a non event. And then realize that this is kind of critical. The market is always right, even though it may not always be correct. Okay. I know that's kind of back and forth there, but we have to follow price. All of our logic and all of our intellect is saying the market should be going up, yet here it is going down. And the vice versa of that is also true. We have to follow that. We have to respect what's going on, even when it goes against what we think will happen. And human logic is one thing, and stock market logic is something completely different. And they rarely coincide with each other. When I'm in full screen mode, I just want to keep an eye on the time. I'm not able to see the clock as closely as I thought I could. Now, as a teacher, just to give you an example, if I'm in a classroom and my students are not acting right, they're not behaving, they're not listening, and I can take control of that situation. I can make them read books they don't want to read. I can make them write papers they don't want to write. I can make them do things they don't want to do in the hope that I'm going to modify that behavior and get them turned around and acting the way that I feel that they should be acting. Okay. And a lot of us in our professional careers, if something's not going right, we can jump in there, take charge, and actually change the situation enough so that things go more in our favor. You can't do that with the stock market. It's too big. It's too expansive. And so where people are often quite successful in their professional careers, they might really struggle in the stock market because they can't control that. You can't just have this positive mental attitude. You have to have a realistic attitude about what's going on at that point. And that's stock market logic. Okay, we may be able to control our lives, but we cannot control the market. And you can't take it personal either. It's not out to get you. Each day is new. We keep the things that are working and we discard the things that aren't working. I mean, this sounds simple, but you get in the heat of what's going on and everything starts to change. And then I don't implement Elliott wave theory. If you guys are familiar with that, I talk about it in the course that I have on YouTube. It's great at telling you what you should have done, but I can just look at a plain bar chart and have that tell me what I should have done because they always have to redraw. The reason I don't like Elliott wave is it's so subjective. You have to create these waves and come up with what you think is happening. And most of the time, the guys that I've watched, they're wrong. And the software that I've used, it's wrong. And it has to redraw it and it comes up with something else. Now, it doesn't mean that it's always wrong, but there are some people that really believe in this. I'm not one of them. I do use Fibonacci lines, which is kind of an extension of Elliott wave, and I rely on those heavily, but those are more objective. When we have to put our own thoughts into what's actually happening, that's what I tend to discard as far as technical analysis. And then this is an interesting one. I'm a big believer in prayer, okay? But I don't want to have the prayer be, oh God, oh God, oh God, please just let me get through this next trade. Just let it all happen the way I want it to. Please come back to break even so I can get out. That's not what I'm talking about, okay? That's like there's no atheists and foxholes kind of a thing where you make a bargain. And if you get me out of this and I'm still alive, I'm gonna become a priest or something. We don't want to use this as some kind of bargaining chip. What I try to seek is wisdom, just actual wisdom. Because if you have wisdom, all the other things kind of take care of themselves. We're not just hoping that something is going to happen and then thinking that we're loved if it works out the way we want and we're hated if things don't work out the way we want. And then don't play hunches as well. I've kind of addressed that already. So my key to success right here is think for yourself and own up to it. And we've lost that in America. We don't do that anymore. We're critical thinking, and in a lot of situations, that's one reason I'm not teaching in the classroom right now, because I was being told that I have to teach certain things a certain way. And I'm like, no, I want to get people to think for themselves. That's what a real educator does. It's more like the Socratic method, but developed by Socrates, where you ask questions and then you let the other person basically come to their own conclusions. That's when you're really starting to think for yourself. Now, you're going to get some help along the way, and there's things that I know that you don't know. There's probably lots of things that you know that I don't know. And so we can kind of work together and be able to get you on the right path of success. And I realize also that this method that I'm just sharing with you now, it's not for everyone. We want to take one or two indicators and use them and then sink or swim by using those indicators, okay? This requires more of an effort. Most want to be told what to do when it comes to the stock market. I found this over and over again. And I use this example where if I was to come to you, and I know we don't actually know each other, but I say, you're not treating your wife the right way, or you really want to buy that house, or I don't think you should go there on vacation. You'd think, where are you coming from? Where do you get off trying to tell me about how to run my life? And you would be correct. That would be totally inappropriate to me to do that. But it just amazes me when people have thousands and thousands of dollars and it comes to the stock market, they want somebody to tell them what to do. And we've lost that ability to think for ourselves. And I'm going to do what I can in this program to try to get that back. Okay. We like to take credit when there's success, and then we have someone to blame when there are losses, because we've kind of developed this victim mentality in American culture now, where instead of taking responsibility, we look for somebody to blame as to why we're in the situation that we're in. And that's just kind of how it's developed over the course of my lifetime. And I kind of want to steer off in a different direction. My approach requires a lot of dedication. It also requires determination, consistency. And I know, if you think it's boring to watch these daily videos when I'm kind of saying the same thing day after day, think of how boring it is for me to say it day after day. Yeah, things don't change all that quickly sometimes, and we're kind of going through the same thing over and over again. But we have to do that because there might be subtle changes that begin to take place. And then taking personal responsibility when we're wrong, saying, okay, I was just wrong in that one, and there's really no excuse for it. I hope to learn from it, but I was just wrong. All right. And then really enjoying it when you do have success, when you're right. Enjoy those times. So making the videos as long as needed and as comprehensive as possible, this weeds out a lot of the sheeple. There are people that are sheep that just want to be told what to do. The biggest complaint that I get from people is that my videos are too long. And it's like, okay, they're designed that way. I don't want the people watching these videos that only want 3 to 5 minute videos. And I'm not making cat videos. I'm trying to really teach something that's deep. So it's going to take longer to get this channel to grow, to get the program to grow, because more is expected out of it. And that's just, when I look at my number of people that subscribe to the channel, yeah, of course I want it to go up. But I'm almost just as pleased when I see it tick down one or two. Fortunately, for about every 10 up, I might get 2 that go down. And I'm pleased about that because I want these people to realize, okay, maybe this isn't for me. I'm trying to weed out the people that don't really want to devote themselves to this. Okay, does this approach work? I started publishing the videos on YouTube and Rumble back in January of 2022. I would suggest looking at a blank bar chart. And the next slide after this, I actually have a chart. And go back if you want to and watch what was I saying at that time. In fact, let me show you this right here. This red line, this is when I started putting the videos on YouTube and Rumble, and they're still there. You can go back and look at them. When we were getting near a bottom, what was I saying at that time? When we were hitting a top, what was I saying in the videos? When we were really coming down the way we were and hitting down here, what was I saying? When we went back up, just see if, and I know these videos are kind of long, maybe go to the end part and look at the conclusion, kind of skim through them quickly. But I purposely leave those videos up there just for this reason. So it's like, does this guy know what he's talking about? Well, let's look at a chart and see when we hit a bottom, see when we hit a top, and go back and see what he was saying at that time. And we'll see if this guy really knows what he's talking about or not. And I think you'll find that my insight was pretty much right on. I don't have any kind of a perfect track record, but I tend to be right when I'm seeing these things. So the conclusion for this section, I mainly just covered my philosophy to technical analysis, and that's really what I wanted to cover here. I do have a course that's part of the membership program where we break out the charts, we go through what a moving average is, we go through all the indicators, we go into what they're made up of, who developed them, what we can use them for. I didn't want to do that right here because that course is like really long and it's really hard to break it down into a short little segment. So I really just wanted to go over how I look at things kind of in the bigger picture. And then I start at the very beginning in this course, and then I just go from there and we get more and more. That's why I really like the idea of these pre-recorded online courses, because you can go back and rewatch these things. And maybe you didn't pick up something, or maybe you need to review something, and you can go back and, oh, now I get it a little bit more. You can ask me questions. We can have discussions about it. If there's something that's really confusing, we can actually do some kind of a video or a breakout course or something where we go into more detail. And then different types of charts, indicators, and interpretation methods. I really go in a lot of detail in that class where I really go deeply into that.